Racing Swans on the Teifi. For 4 seasons, I was part of the St. Dogmael's rowing team and rowed a Celtic longboat on the river and coast. Twice a week, from April through to October, we took to the water and pitted our small vessel against the push and shove of currents and waves. As a child, I'd been told I wasn't sporty, I had no coordination, and so I was as surprised as anyone when I climbed tentatively into the boat one summer day for a trial row and discovered that this I could do, and do naturally and well. I loved everything about rowing. I loved the essential rhythm and repetition of it, the intimate camaraderie with people I otherwise had no daily connection to, the way the exercise revealed and honed muscles I hadn't even known I had. Most of all, I loved the feeling when I took my place in the boat, strapped my feet, and grasped the oar. I was usually on stroke to set the pace for the rest of the team, and I was able, for the entire time I was out in the water, to unplug myself and my busy, anxious mind from conscious thought and channel it into something bigger and calmer. I was part of a machine when we were rowing, and I couldn't detach myself from that wider body without endangering the people around me. It was the closest I've ever been to true peace, a blank serenity I imagine other people achieve through meditation or yoga. We rode the Teifi more often than not, launching from the moorings and making our way through the village and beyond, towards Cardigan town and under the 2 bridges that bookended it. On a high tide we could get as far as the deep, shadowy gorge below Culgarin Castle. On autumn nights we'd return to St. Dogmael's as dusk gathered, the lights of the houses against the hillside glittering like fairy lights ahead of us as we neared the village. Sometimes we'd launch the longboat from Poppet Sands and row out of the bay and around Cardigan Island. Those longer, physically exhausting sessions were less enjoyable for me. The waters around the island are fast and treacherous, the surface of the sea running like rapids as it's funneled between the island and the mainland. On stroke, I couldn't miss a beat. My arms worked like steady pistons, and my focus was fixed entirely, unblinkingly on the cocks as they bellowed us around the choppy, rocky route and into safer waters. We'd stop sometimes, safely back in the bay and half a mile from shore, to rest and chat, smoke a cigarette, or even drop a fishing rod over the side. A seal would occasionally appear beside us and watch us intently, dark eyes full of curiosity. Once 2 dolphins breached close by, rolling lazily over the surface of the sea and creating a wave that rocked our little boat. Everyone was filled with excitement at the sight of them, and I'd pretended to join in, but hadn't managed to get myself past the instinctive fear of a creature far bigger than I was, bossing us in its natural environment. I can swim, but the beach was a long way away, and I doubted I could swim that far if the dolphins decided to give us a playful nudge and tip us overboard. We capsized one evening, caught by a sudden fierce wave as we came into shore. It knocked us sideways, and then the next wave flipped the boat, just as we were trying to straighten out, flinging us overboard. We were close enough to the beach to only be a little out of our depth, and though it was frightening, there was no harm done, other than to me and my mental health. The next time we took to the sea, I had an anxiety attack that left me weak and shaking, limbs boneless. I had to gather strength before I could grip the oar and row again. Nobody knew how badly I was struggling. I said I had a stitch, but I saw the quizzical look the Cox gave me afterwards, and when he asked me outright what the problem was, I told him. He was supportive, sympathetic, and we tried twice more to row at sea under his careful guidance. But the panic, brutal, savage, hijacking me from nowhere, didn't stop. I decided then that I would only row the river from now on. I couldn't be responsible for the potential danger I was placing the rest of the team in if the anxiety hit me. After a couple of weeks, the same panic caught and held me when we rode the Teifi. I'd lost faith in myself and any ability I had by then. From the moment I got in the boat, I was anticipating the surge of anxiety, braced for it to snatch my strength and reduce me to a state of hyperventilating helplessness. I'd forgotten what it was that I'd ever loved about rowing. My mortification and self-loathing ruining any pleasure or peace I might find in the thought of being back on the water. That constant watchfulness was exhausting in itself, waiting for the cruelly inevitable anxiety to unfold from the pit of my stomach and flood me. By the end of that season, I'd stopped rowing altogether. A year later, when I went on a riverboat that chugged lazily from Cardigan to Poppet and back, It took every ounce of self-control to stay seated and appear calm. Every part of me was shrilling with the compulsion to climb overboard and leap for the bank that slid slowly past us. When we docked, I was too weak to walk and had to sit on the quayside in Cardigan until I'd regained the strength and composure needed to be able to stand. I haven't been back in a boat since then, and I don't know if I ever will. I can't bridge the ocean's deep gap between the strong, eager woman who rowed all the way out to Cardigan Island and around it, and the woman I am now. Sometimes I'll pass the moorings and watch the current team launching the longboat, chatting happily as they set their feet and lift their oars, push out from the shore. The disconnect between the person who once took her seat in the stern and closed her eyes became a vital part of something bigger than herself, and this land-bound person is total. I have to turn and walk away. But at other times, the physical memory of the rhythm of the row, the weight of the oar in my hands, and the tugging of muscles in my stomach sets up a yearning and a profound sense of loss that brings tears to my eyes and keeps me close to watch them as they raise their oars in unison and pause for a moment before they begin to stroke away from me, past the jangle of fishing boats and small yachts that scatter this stretch of the river, heading for the beach or the town. The world looks different from the water. No matter how many times we rode past the Graig in the green, I could never stop marvelling at how St. Dogmell's, a village I've lived in for years and know intimately, was made a beautiful stranger. It wasn't just the changed view, it was the changed mental perspective. When we came back to shore after a row, and I took my first steps away from the boat, there was a moment of unfamiliarity, a strange, almost shy return to this person who walked these lanes, leaving behind my other self when I stripped off my life jacket. We knew the bend in the river, not visible from land, where the kingfisher always perched on the slumped and intricate fretwork of a dead tree and watched us pass. We always slowed and looked out for it. When the shell ducks floated past, with their tangled line of chicks, we counted the bobbing heads to see how many of the tiny creatures had survived since the last row. Deep in the ancient wilderness of the Kilgarran Gorge, where the cold slate banks rose steeply around us, the river below us deep and still, the sky above us lost beyond the overhanging trees, I began to write stories of monsters and desperate infatuation in my head that I then continued on paper when we got home. The pair of mute swans who live on the stretch of the Teifi would glance at us coldly as we rode past them, sometimes hissing and darting a warning beak if they had cygnets to protect, but otherwise ignoring us as inferior things not worthy of their full attention. Apart from the time one of them decided to show us just how gracefully, how swiftly, and how easily a creature who truly belongs to the river can move. We pull away from the moorings and slide past the ferry, nodding and smiling at the punters who waved at us from the decking, past the first big bend in the river and the vast oak that guards it. No perching kingfisher today as we row beneath the Graig path. Though I'm facing away and can only see the world streaming past in reverse, I know that at any moment the outlying buildings of Cardigan town will appear distantly over my shoulder, and then we'll soon be carefully negotiating the arches of Cardigan Bridge before the river flattens and spreads as we draw level with the Teifi marshes. The swan, as we pass it, sneers slightly, but doesn't otherwise react. The river is tougher this evening, the tide and currents against us. Sweat is already slick on my body, the late summer air heavy around me. I slacken the stroke slightly, just enough to give us all a moment to slow the pace a little, gather ourselves before the hard push through the turbulent, whirl-pulling thrust of the river beneath the bridge. I watch the swan as it watches us, gliding gently in the wash of the boat. And then it twitches as if shocked, rears up from the water's surface and spreads its wings. It begins to run after us, huge black feet pounding the surface of the Teifi. It races towards the boat, tucks its webbed feet up into the velvet plush of its stomach, and takes flight. Galvanized now, in competition, we all pick up the pace as the bird beats those vast wings, a foot above the river, and gains on us effortlessly. Shouting, laughing, we row faster, the cocks calling at us to keep at it. And for a moment the swan is level with us, hanging in the air beside the boat, close enough to touch. The sound of its slow and easy flight fills the evening. It doesn't turn its head, but I am sure it gives us a glint of contemptuous side-eye as we battle neck and neck for a couple of seconds. And then it pulls ahead, as it was always going to do, and lifts itself higher and leaves us behind. We slow and rest our oars on the rowlocks, twist in our seats to watch the creature as it cruises along the river to join its mate, settling itself in the shallow water beside the bank with a flourish of wing beats, hissing its triumph. Still laughing, joyful, we turn back to face the cocks and begin to row in earnest as the swirling currents around Cardigan's old bridge catch us. The swans slide past my gaze, their heads turned dismissively away from the sight of us. I keep my eyes fixed on them as we fight the Teifi's high-tide whirlpool waters that funnel under the narrow stone arches and spit us out on the other side of the bridge. Even after we've rowed beneath the bypass bridge and onto Kilgarran Gorge, I keep my focus fixed on the river far behind the boat, half expecting to see the swan again, hoping it will reappear for another race, give us a generous head start, and then raise itself gracefully onto its feet, stir those huge wings, and start running, annihilate our feeble human efforts.